that breaking news on the border we've been following, with unprecedented numbers of migrant children crossing the U.S.-Mexico border and officials bracing to take in more than 17,000 this month alone. A delegation of White House officials and House Democrats toured a facility opened by the Department of Health and Human Services, housing hundreds of these migrants. NBC News correspondent Gabe Gutierrez was the only reporter on that tour. He joins us now from Carrizo Springs, Texas, to describe what he's seen. NBC's Jacob Soboroff is still with us as well. Gabe, what can you tell us?
Hey there, Nicole. Well, we just came out of this facility, this HHS facility in Carrizo Springs, Texas. And it's important to note that it is an HHS facility. It is not a CBP facility. The video and the images that we've seen of the overcrowding in the Customs and Border Protection facilities, that's where migrant children initially go when they're first picked up by Border Patrol. They're supposed to go from there to these HHS facilities within 72 hours, but we know from our reporting that it is taking much longer than that. So I want to tell you what I saw inside. I went with this delegation, and we were not allowed to speak to the children, but I saw plenty of migrant children here in the facility. They waved to us. We saw them playing soccer. It's a hot day here in Texas, about 80 degrees, and yet we saw plenty of them outside, some of them wearing knit hats that the officials here in the compound tell me they actually knit themselves. It was quite interesting to see. This is a facility of 13 to 17-year-old children, all males, and I can give you some numbers right now. In this facility, there are 766 migrant children right now. There's a capacity of 952 in this facility. The highest that they have reached is 800. So again, several hundred children. For context, we were here back in 2019 during the Trump administration, and it was the Trump administration that opened this facility. Back then, they had a capacity of much higher, about 1,700 or so, but they only ever got several hundred back then, and the facility closed within several weeks. Now, let me walk you through what this tour entailed. First, we went into an intake center. Well, first of all, I should tell you a little bit of background. When we went in, we took COVID tests, me and my crew. When we came in, when you walk into the facility, there's an American flag at the top of that facility, and there is a sign painted on the main structure, Bienvenidos, it says. So HHS certainly trying to, provide a welcoming atmosphere for these kids when they arrive. Now, in this intake facility, they were given a duffel bag with clothes, underwear, a hygiene kit, and then they undergo a COVID test there. Now, Nicole, the interesting thing I found, I told you that number, around 700 or so children in here right now, 766. Of that number, 108 have tested positive for COVID-19 during the intake process, 108 of them. So what happens when they do test positive? They are then taken to their dormitories. They have, I believe, about 190 some odd dormitory beds with negative pressure. So they are isolated for a number of days. We then went from the intake facility, we went to a dining hall as well. They weren't dining at the time, but there was also a physical education class. It was a massive tent where there was a physical education class underway, and these children were looking at an instructor who was kind of teaching them a class virtually, doing push-ups inside this tent. Again, all the while outside there were multiple groups, 12, about a dozen kids each, playing soccer outside. Something else that we noticed, there were several trailers inside this facility that were set aside for legal representation. The minors are then taken there, often meeting with nonprofits or lawyers virtually, we're told. We also saw dormitories where 4 children are in one bedroom each. And a typical day, we're told, for them starts with breakfast at 7 o'clock. Then they have 6 hours of instruction, and then they have a midday snack, lunch, and also, they play soccer even until late in the day. Lights out is about 10:30. Now, Nicole, we did press the White House here. Access by journalists has been a very touchy issue over the last couple of days. We have been here along the border for weeks, and we have been asking for access to these facilities. It should be noted that Customs and Border Protection has not given access to its facilities. It released handout video yesterday of two of those facilities in Donna, Texas, and in El Paso. This is, again, an HHS facility, which is the next step after they come from CBP custody. So these facilities, even historically back in the Trump administration, were generally not crowded. The question right now, and the really huge question on whether this situation escalates at the southern border, is whether the Biden administration can get a hold on this. The congressional delegation that was here, including, by the way, Henry Cuellar, who earlier this week released photos of those facilities, the Customs and Border Protection facilities, he was here as well. He criticized the Biden administration at the time for not moving fast enough. The question is, can they be processed from this facility quickly enough to be able to be placed with sponsors inside the country? We have spoken with rank-and-file Border Patrol agents who say that it is HHS that is really holding up this process. They say they can process the migrant children inside their facilities quick enough because there is not enough bed space. And we pressed the Biden administration on that. Why didn't they see this coming, knowing that the number of migrants coming into this country had risen for several months before they took office? They say two main reasons. One, COVID, according to them, has reduced their bed capacity by 40%. They also say that the policies of the previous administration, by a hiring freeze on HHS, has slowed this whole process down, and they're moving as quickly as they can. But Nicole, again, we have been to these facilities before during the Trump administration. They did allow reporters in, sometimes with, sometimes without camera. And Alex, we have also been to these facilities before, and so there are certainly many questions about why it took so long for the Biden administration to actually allow reporters in. But we did see this facility. The tour itself took about 2 hours or so, and again, it was great to see finally up close this facility, finally, after we've been waiting for several weeks asking for this access. And still many unanswered questions, though, about where the Biden administration goes from here and whether HHS can ramp up quick enough in order to get these migrant children to sponsors here in the country. There's also many other discussions in terms of policy discussions. Is it sustainable to allow unaccompanied minors to stay in this country? What type of message does that send to Central America? The border, some of the Border Patrol agents and law enforcement officials we have spoken with along the border say that essentially is giving the green light to either drug smugglers or to migrants in some of these countries in southern Mexico, that there's a perception that the border has more lenient policies, and that brings them here. According to the Biden administration officials we spoke with today, they're not seeing that. They say that this is seasonal, that migrants come here every year. Yes, we are seeing more unaccompanied minors this time, but they say they're going to ramp up the bed capacity in order to handle this.
Gabe, I know you're in the field, so you don't have access to the studio feed. So you know it's me, Alex Wagner. Nicole is off right now. It is all good. You are attending to much more important things. We haven't yet. We're getting a live feed here, right? This is pooled footage. It's going to be shared, but you were the reporter on the ground here. We haven't yet seen the conditions inside. We haven't seen the pictures from inside this HHS facility. Can you give us a sort of more robust picture of what it's like inside? And also the ages of the children who you saw. Are they older children, younger children? A few look like they were teenagers. Right. Do we know how long they're going to be held in this facility?
Right, and I can't see the video feed as it's playing out. I believe this was of the raw footage. This was the part of the footage where the delegation was getting off here in the facility. We do have video from inside the facility. The ages of the children range from 13 to 17 years old, and they were all males here at this particular facility. So they were older children, teenagers, and that differs, though, from what I saw back in 2019, where there were also young girls inside this facility, Alex.
And Gabe, did they give a sense of how long these children are going to be held there? Is this weeks, months, days?
Well, and that is there are several complicating factors there. There are certain categories of children that make it easier for them to be placed in the foster care or with family members here inside of this country. One of the categories is that they do have a family member, a parent, or a close relative that they're able to identify, because they need to verify and vet these family members before they can be placed in their custody. Those children are able to leave this facility much quicker. It may take only a few days. Then extending all the way into a child that comes here, doesn't know anyone, that they can't establish a contact, that child could potentially take over 100 days in one of these facilities. There was an HHS official, an official for BCFS, the nonprofit that runs this, that told me that processing time here, or the holding time here rather, is about 30 days or so, the average time. But again, that greatly depends on each individual child. Again, and I want to stress, this is different, Alex, than the CBP, the Customs and Border Protection facilities, where they're originally picked up. Those are the images that we have been seeing over the past couple of days of, overcrowding at those facilities. Here, we did not see that overcrowding. The kids seem calm, but as several members of Congress had pointed out, several critics of the administration have pointed out that they don't want to have these kids longer than they need to be. The White House has even acknowledged these are not facilities that were meant to hold kids for an extended period of time. The question is, are they moving fast enough to conduct these background checks of family members here in this country? Should they not have seen this coming, given that the migrants, the increase in migrants coming over the last few months of 2020, the end of the Trump administration? Should they have done a better job ramping up this bed space? And where do they go from here? Are they going to ramp up fast enough? There's another facility that should house several hundred children right here in Carrizo Springs that's set to open in the near future, Alex.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.